Meanwhile, the World Bank forecasting our economy will grow by 3% this year, following a major COVID-induced contraction of 7% last year. We'll also need an accelerated vaccine rollout to see this kind of growth. Let's speak now to the economist, Ndumiso Hadebe. Ndumiso, good afternoon to you. We've seen some countries really starting to see their economies moving very quickly as they come out of very hard, prolonged lockdowns. We've started to see growth really bounce back. Our economy has been growing too after the lockdowns we had last year. How would you say our economy is doing at the moment?
I think the economic fortunes for the South African economy certainly are closely linked to the efficacy in which we roll out vaccination. And I think given that the vaccination rollout in the South African context right now has not been impressive, or rather in line with some of the forecasts of the outlook that we have for the future, I think that the South African economy still has a very long way to go in order certainly to meet the forecast expectations of 3% by the World Bank and 3.2% by other institutions. And I think in our estimates, we certainly do anticipate a growth outcome of that exceeds 3% for this year, provided that the rollouts that have been communicated by government are indeed done in accordance to that program. But I think there's certainly a long way to go for the South African economy. We would know that some of the sectors, specifically tourism in particular, that has received a hard beating due to the lockdown-induced economic contraction, still has a long way to go as a result of some of the enterprises that have had to be liquidated as a consequence of the pandemic.
So, I mean, the faster we vaccinate, the better it's going to be, right?
It certainly is, and we see this very same story across other parts of the globe, whereby where there are instances where there is increased efficacy and increased rollout of the vaccination, there's a greater ease of economic restrictions, and that ease of economic restrictions then drives consumer and business confidence to ensure that consumers are then able, more confident, to make use of whether it be disposable or credit that they might have at their disposal to buy more durable goods in certain instances, but also businesses alike. We see an uptick from a business consumer confidence perspective, where businesses derive some level of confidence to make some riskier investments in the economy due to what might appear to be better prospects for growth in the medium to long term. In the South African case, it's been really a mixed picture as we look at the data sets that come from the retail perspective, where you look at manufacturing data or the mining sector. It's really been a mixed picture from last year to date, and that certainly speaks to the mixed scenario where we're finding ourselves where vaccination rollout is concerned. Until we certainly have that in control, we will then start seeing a greater correlation, and a correlation that emanates from causation that would lead to some of the forecasts that we anticipate for 2021 in the South African economy.
How big a factor is the number of new cases of COVID-19? And let me talk about what I'm talking about, a possible third wave. I mean, obviously, the faster we vaccinate, the less vulnerable people with comorbidities are, the fewer deaths we'll have. And probably as a result of that, it may follow, it may not, but it may follow that government would not have to institute a hard lockdown. I imagine the threat of lockdown is what really hovers over the economy. If you're in tourism, you're not going to invest in that new swimming pool for your tourist facility if there's even a chance of a lockdown.
It certainly is. I think the threat of a third wave certainly has or infers some of those reservations that both consumers and business people may have alike, because at this point in time, if you are a business person who has some little cash or some cash flow available in your business, you would want to ensure that you extend the runway of that cash flow to really pass you through, or to really ensure that you're able to get through this pandemic or the season where there's a high threats or a new third wave in this instance. If you are a consumer or you are a worker, for example, you are certainly faced with the uncertainty of whether or not you will still have your job in the next couple of months, given the stability of an organization that you work for, and you'd want to ensure that you do have some level of buffer available to be able to sustain yourself and your family. In addition to that, you'd also want to ensure that you have some level of credit options that are available to you in instances where you might be faced by prospective difficult situations for your family. So certainly the threat of a third wave brings forth a number of uncertainties for both business people and consumers alike, and it would be quite important, therefore, that the vaccination then really takes underway as effectively as possible, but also to ensure that the requisite supporting mechanisms on the side of government do ease the level of anxiety that exists within the South African economic agents presently.
The rand very strong at the moment. I mean, below 14 rand to the dollar. I know some at Luthuli House will say it's because of them and because of what happened in the ANC over the week. Is anything in that, or is it confidence in our economy? Or is it because Moody's didn't do anything that makes everybody feel better about the rand?
Well, I think in previous models that we've ran before, we've actually noticed that there's inferences where about 60% of what happens outside of South Africa certainly influences the performance of the South African rand. And of course, given the recent events where we have also seen some of the strengthening prices of commodity prices, and given the strong link that South African economy has with commodity prices, that has also improved the performance of the rand. But even in 2021 alone, we've seen an appreciation of the South African rand by 4% against the dollar. And this has also been associated with the pressure that has been associated with the dollar and the occurrences there. But I think one of the other interesting events that have taken place in the recent weeks has been the call by the U.S. presidency, President Biden, with respect to the wavering of intellectual property where the COVID-19 vaccine is concerned, which I think has also permeated into financial markets and currency, specifically in terms of how emerging market currencies are able to perform. But in the recent couple of weeks, the South African rand has been one of the better performers across its emerging markets counterparts.
Ndumiso Hadebe, economist, do appreciate the time. Thank you very much indeed. Do appreciate